Hi, I'm Mark Guntrip, Senior Director of Cybersecurity Strategy at Menlo Security. I'm here today to talk to you about a topic, SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, as a term that's really gathered a lot of steam and a lot of momentum behind it, and really what it can mean to organizations that are looking to make that shift to a SASE framework. And I think the first thing that we need to look at is kind of where this fits in the life cycle of your digital transformation. So digital transformation, as I'm sure you all know, is a journey, and it can be a long journey, but every journey needs to have a starting point. And for most companies, that starting point of digital transformation was their applications, taking those applications that were on-premise, that were in a data center, and moving them up to cloud platforms, whether that's as a SaaS application or something like a public cloud like AWS. What that meant was that our architecture shifted. So everything used to be on-premise. Everything used to be in our data center. My end users used to connect in because that's all they needed to connect to. They didn't need to go anywhere else. But when we started moving our applications up to the cloud, it introduced one step extra of now it's not in my data center, I go to the cloud to access it. But it kind of shifted the perimeter of what we were looking to protect from a security side of things, from being a really defined hard, literally a wall perimeter, to data. My data is now the perimeter of everything I need to protect. And when you went through this process, there were probably a few questions and a few things that you needed to do to be successful. First was to choose your starting point. So for many, I think this was email. So I'm going to take my Exchange server that's sitting in my data center. I'm going to move that up to Office 365. I'm going to use this cloud thing, and everything's going to continue as normal. And so you don't do this all at once. You do it in a rolling project plan. So you need to plan what that incremental rollout is going to be. Which applications are going to move next? What order are they going to go in? How are you going to make sure that business continuity is maintained while you're making that shift? It's everything that needs to be planned out. And you probably had some applications that would never go to the cloud at all. Maybe something that was homegrown, something that was proprietary, private application that either wasn't going to work on a cloud platform or it just didn't make sense to move it. So they stayed behind in the data center, and that meant that for many organizations, the end goal of moving their applications was going to be a hybrid state, where some are in the cloud, some are SaaS, some are on AWS, some are in my data center. But that's okay. That was my goal. That was success, and that's where we were heading. So after we moved our applications to the cloud, next came the network. So my applications are out there, my data is out there. Now I need to have a better way of ensuring that my offices, that my end users can actually get to all of the things that they need. So they absolutely might want to connect back into HQ and that data center, but they also need to go everywhere else. And that's where software-defined networks and SD-WAN came in to really simplify and smooth that process so that all of those connections were easier to manage. You could use the internet as your network coming back in without any expensive private circuits and everything else that went along with that. So now everybody's spread around. Now I've got my end users out there. I've got my branch offices connecting directly. So now that perimeter switched from being data out to users. And that's all well and good for the business. But the last part that we need to add to that is security. And security has really kind of been left behind in this journey, and I really see it as kind of the end of digital transformation is the adoption of cloud-based security, or SASE. And when you put security in the cloud, you put it back in the proximity of your end users. You put it in between the people and the applications and the data, so you can start to get that visibility again. You can start to implement policy. You can enhance the end user experience without sacrificing any of your security posture. So it's a natural progression. And how do we get there? How do we put it in the cloud? Well, if you listen to Gartner, who coined the term SASE, again, Secure Access Service Edge, to define what this framework looked like, it's very much the combination or the convergence of your network piece and your SD-WAN and all of your security components, all in the cloud, all supporting all of your users wherever they happen to be. Now, this architecture, there's a lot of words on this slide, right? So I want to use something that's a little, maybe a little less wordy to really explain what this means to you. So similar words, same outcome in terms of this slide. We still have a lot of components in here. We've got our firewall as a service. We've got our secure web gateway. We've got our cloud access security broker, our CASB. We've got data loss prevention, zero trust network access, browser isolation. There's a lot of components in here. And I see a lot of the correlate between what we did with applications and what we do with our security stack in terms of how we move that to the cloud. But I think there's one thing really that we also need to think here, is that if we look at this and we say, so if I put all of these components in the cloud, I have a SASE framework, right? You go, well, I guess maybe strictly you do, but if you're going to go to the effort of taking each of these components, moving them up to the cloud, you might want to do a bit more than just having 6, 7, 8 different capabilities that are now cloud-based that still don't talk to each other, still don't share information, still don't share policy and visibility. So if we're going to go through this project, if we're going to finish this digital transformation, then I think there's a few things we need to roll into it, and that's centralized management and centralized policy. So all of these things work together. How about, right? You set your policy once and everybody follows it. And if it follows the policy, then you get this centralized view into what's going on in your network. You understand who's gone where, what threats were trying to come in, what data is where. That's when we start to see a real benefit to moving your security to the cloud. So how do we get there? So on the previous slide, right, there's lots and lots of different components that you can move over. So you might liken it to a recipe. I have all of my ingredients, and if I do them in the right order, and if I do them in the right amounts, then at the end of the day, I'm going to have some wonderful dish. Well, I'm sorry to say that's not quite how it goes. There is no recipe for a successful SASE implementation. There's no steps that you can follow so that you know that you're going to come out at the end of the day with something that's great. And this isn't actually something that's necessarily easy to do. So SASE isn't something that you can go out there to a vendor, to a service provider and say, just give me SASE. I'll take it all. Let's go. So there's no one out there that has that SKU that says SASE, that you buy it, they enable it, and everything is done for you. It really is something that you have to figure out what it is, what you want to do, and how you want to do it. There's also no instructions on how to do it. So again, this is not like a recipe. There is no step-by-step what do you do, because it's really up to you to define what you do, how you do it, and what your goals are. And the other important thing is that success is really defined by you. So again, this is not like a recipe where success is the perfect loaf of bread, casserole, burger, whatever it might be. Success is defined by how you define your goals. That is not defined by what you put in, it's defined by where you go and where you put that finishing line. So again, very similar to what we saw with applications, is we're not necessarily going to take all of this, we're not going to finish at the same point with everybody. Everyone's going to have a slightly different finishing point, but it's where they need to be for their business. So if SASE isn't like a recipe, what's it like? Well, it's kind of like a menu. And when you look at a menu, a big difference between a recipe and a menu. When you look at a recipe, you have everything that you've got to put in. And if you're missing an ingredient, then the recipe isn't going to work. You're going to fail. But when you look at a menu, I would doubt very much that there's many people out there that would go, you know what, I'm going to take the menu and I'll take everything. I want all of the stuff on the menu. When you have a menu, you choose what you have. You choose what type of meal you want. You choose how hungry you are. And it's kind of the same thing with SASE. So as you're looking at implementing SASE, first of all, you choose which courses you want to take. There's nothing that says you have to have appetizers for the table and a soup and an entree and a dessert and coffee and maybe a liqueur at the end. That's not the rule, right? When you go to a restaurant, you choose what you want. Maybe you just want appetizers. You're not that hungry. Maybe you want an entree and nothing else. I'm good. But you get to decide what you want. And when it comes to SASE, you get to decide your starting point. Where is it that you want to begin this journey? And you get to decide how many of that long list of components you actually want to embed in your SASE framework and move to the cloud. What makes sense for your business? Secondly, why it's similar to a menu, you get to make substitutions to your order. There is nothing that says what is the main course is the best main course for everybody. And similarly, that when it comes to SASE, there's no one size fits all. So you can choose what you want. And if there are things that don't work for you, then maybe you switch them out. Because every business will have different goals, different ways of working. And so their needs, their outcomes for a particular SASE component could be very, very different. So we need to take this into account. There isn't going to be a path that everybody can walk down. It really has to be up to the individual for their organization. And then finally, it has to work for you. You can't kind of force a different view on there if it's not what your business needs. So you need to define your goals. You need to define what success looks like. And then you choose the pieces that actually help you towards that goal. So let's dip into each one of these. Let's choose which courses you want. So where's your starting point going to be? As you start to look at how do I build out this plan? What does my journey look like? How long is it going to take? Where do I start? I would say the thing to consider first is, where is your biggest risk? What is it that your end users do that you believe introduces the largest risk to your organization? What tools? Where is it that this, if you could fix one thing, that's what it would be? And for many organizations, at least that we talk to as Menlo Security, that's the web, their browser. Everything they do is through the web. Almost every single user uses the web, and the attackers come in with 90% of the threats coming in through email and web. So for many of our customers, that's where they choose to start, but you need to choose where your starting point is and how you start that journey. Second, what does your current infrastructure look like? Similarly to when you did this for applications going through digital transformation, you didn't turn everything off and then a week or so later turn everything back on again. You have to make sure that it works today. We can't just shut everything down. My employees have to keep working. We have to keep business running. We have to keep making money so we can afford this thing, right? So you need to have something that fits with what you're doing today, all the infrastructure you have in today, and where you want to go moving forward, which brings us to the third point, which is your organizational roadmap. Start with your roadmap. What is it that you want? What is your business want to do? What do they want to achieve? How are you going to get there? And then make sure you choose a vendor, a solution, and a SASE journey that matches that. Don't put it the other way around. Don't have your vendor, your service provider, define what their roadmap is, and you have to go along with it. You have to put the business first. This has to be something that's going to drive business forward. Second, making substitutions to your order. Now, again, I said that there's no one size fits all, right? And I'll give an example that maybe your starting point might be different to somebody else's. Your need for a particular component could be different to somebody else's. And so as you look at the underlying architecture of your provider, does it match what you need? And what I mean by this is, are you global? Are you only in North America? Are you in very remote parts of the world where there isn't internet capabilities, there isn't high bandwidth? What are you going to do? Do you need single visibility across everybody in an office and remote workers, or are you willing to do those separately? So you have to make sure that the capabilities and the platform that you're buying into can actually match what you need in terms of scale, in terms of support, in terms of performance. But also remember that different platforms have different strengths. And again, this kind of comes down to what is it that you want to do? Where do you want to extract the most value? And if you look at all those capabilities within that SASE framework, I mentioned web earlier on. Many vendors have a very strong secure web gateway capability. Others might have a very strong CASB capability. Others might have a very strong browser isolation capability. Others might be DLP. So you choose what it is where you want to start that journey, where you want to extract the most value, and that's where you start the path. That's the vendor that you choose that says your strengths match what I'm looking for. That's going to be successful. And then finally, you want to look at the integrations. So choosing a platform is wonderful, but it's got to fit in with everything else that you use, whether that's a SIM, whether that's other internal tools where you want to pull logs off to, send alerts to for your SOC. So you have to make sure that it fits in with what you have. fits in with other tools that you've purchased, and maybe integrates with other tools that you haven't yet purchased, but you know that you want to. So you have to plan this thing out and make sure that it is a fit for you. And then finally, you need to make sure that it fits within your requirements. So again, this comes down to defining what are the rules that you go by? What does success look like to you? Because that's how you should measure it. You shouldn't think that, again, comparing back to the recipe, that this is something that if I follow the steps, success will come. You get to choose what success looks like. Success might be, I've got everything in the cloud. Success might be, I just have my web gateway in the cloud. That's the only thing that makes sense for me. And you get to choose that, because you don't need to take everything. Ideally, you would choose a platform that could offer you everything that you think you might need over the coming years, but you don't have to take it. So look for a platform that will enable you to take what you need today, but also help you grow into what you're going to need moving forward, so that you know that you have that path. You know that they are going to follow your roadmap to success. And then finally, you need to define your policy. So it's going to go across all of your control points, potentially, depending what you're taking, right? So it could be web, it could be applications, could be email. There's a whole lot of things in here. What do you want to span across all of this? How do you want that to tie together? That's very important in terms of setting your success metrics, your security posture for your company. So if you walk down the path and you go, you know what, I think a SASE framework might be for me. I think it sounds good. There's a lot of good things that you can get out of this. So the biggest one is going to be operational and business efficiencies. So you will be able to get rid of the hardware that's in your data center. You won't have to support it. You can get rid of network and connectivity. You can get rid of having to scale things and making sure that there's redundancy and load balancing and all of these things that you might not want to do, because if you put it up into the cloud, the vendor has to take care of that for you. It's a service you consume, and that's going to be good. What you're also going to do is get centralized control. So that cloud that's in between your end users, your applications, your data, the web, you have that point of control. You don't have to force everybody to come back in to the office, to HQ. And so you're giving them what they want, but you're regaining your control. You're getting that centralized visibility, again, because of location. If everything has to go through your SASE framework, then you're going to see everything that's going on. And then finally, you're going to have that enhanced end user experience. You're not making them connect to a VPN client. You're not making them do something that makes all of the internet slow because you're not being optimized in terms of where you're going. You're giving your end users what they want: direct access, fast access, scalable access, wherever they are, to the internet, to their tools, to their applications, but you're doing it in a way where you still have visibility, control, and the business is getting the benefit out of this as well. So it's great to move to a SASE framework because of all of these benefits. But while SASE will give you visibility and control, what it isn't necessarily going to do is enhance your security. So we hear a lot today around ransomware, particularly in the media, but phishing, malware in general, everything is trending upwards. And as I mentioned at the beginning, just taking the components that you might have today in an appliance, moving it up to the cloud, that isn't really going to change the outcome. Moving an application from your data center to the cloud didn't make it a better application. It's still the same application. So if you're looking at making this shift, if you're looking at making this transition, then maybe consider doing something in a different way that's actually going to give you those business benefits, the operational benefits, the control, the visibility, and enhanced security. And that's where zero trust and adopting a zero trust mind frame can come in and say, you know what, I'm going to do things differently because I want to have a better security outcome. If I'm going to go through the end of my digital transformation, I'm going to secure everybody, all the applications, all the data, and I'm going to do it in a better way. What we do at Menlo, or the way to consider zero trust, so in that stack was zero trust network access. And that's a very important part of implementing a zero trust mindset. So as you come through, what zero trust network access is going to do, it's going to make sure who you are, what device you're on, your identity, and then depending who you are is going to give you access to only the applications that you're allowed access to. So you're limiting the scope of any user coming into only the things that they need to do. And that's great, right? So we're protecting our data and application from people coming in. We're always going to verify the end user and make sure they're not behaving strangely, that they are who they say they are. But what this singular approach to zero trust doesn't do is protect the end user from any of the data that's in there and anything that might be malicious. And if we think of zero trust as a mindset and not a fixed technology, I think we actually need to make this bi-directional. So in the same way as I'm not going to trust any user, and you're going to have to earn my trust, basically, and my default is block unless you prove otherwise, and then you get the minimum amount of access. I actually need to do the same thing for every piece of data coming in, whether it's from one of my applications, whether it's from the internet. I'm not going to trust anything coming in, and I'm going to assume everything is malicious, because if I do it that way, then I can protect the end user from malicious data coming in, and I protect my data from a malicious user coming in. So this concept of zero trust, I think, is very, very important. And as we look at the framework, I mentioned zero trust network access is a line in here. I believe that's not enough, because again, that's that singular unidirectional view. What we need to do is take zero trust, take that concept, take that mindset and apply it to everything we do. For all of our web gateways, our CASBs, for DLP, everything needs to have that zero trust wrapper if we want to enhance security and stop those threats coming in. Now, as we look at doing this with Menlo Security, we actually have a cloud security platform that is cloud native, that is designed for the cloud. It's designed for the modern architecture that looks to do exactly that. It looks to protect your applications, your data from users coming in, and also looks to protect your users from data that's coming into the organization that might be malicious. And if we dig in a little bit on what that platform looks like, everything starts with our elastic edge. Our entire platform is global. It is scalable, both vertically in terms of workload. So if you have a new region that opens up, if you have an acquisition of a company and thousands more users come in, that's fine. We can take that on our platform. It's also scalable horizontally in terms of security capabilities. So if you start with a web gateway, then you can add on different components as and when you need them. So we're there and we're dynamic and elastic for whatever you need. Everything is encompassed by our firewall as a service. And the key differentiator in what we do is our elastic isolation core. Everything, whether it's web, whether it's applications, data, everything goes through our isolation core. And this is the way that we implement that bidirectional zero trust approach. Because we're assuming all the data coming in is malicious, we're making sure that we remove that potential for infection while still giving the end user the experience that they expect when they're interacting with an application, a website, whatever it might be. All of this is wrapped within a single management console, single point of policy, of management, of visibility, and we offer a whole suite of capabilities. Everything from trust private access, web gateway, DLP, CASB. We have tools for SOC analysts to help them reduce alerts and investigate and resolve alerts quicker. And then, of course, we have our isolation capabilities offered separately, as well as our elastic isolation core, which impacts everything that we do. So if you're looking at moving to SASE, if you're looking at making that shift, again, to repeat and kind of summarize what I went through today, define your plan, define it based on your business goals, not on anything else of the recipe, make it your own menu. If you're looking to make those security enhancements, then SASE can help, right? It can take that policy, it can put it where it needs to be to get that control and visibility. But if you're looking to improve your security in terms of the threats that are detected, stopped, and increasing your security posture, improving that, then you might need to do something a bit more and embed zero trust as a mindset in how you build out, how you choose your vendor, your platform, your capabilities. Because putting zero trust in that SASE deployment means that the modern threats that are designed to get through the traditional way of protecting an organization, they're not going to be able to get through. They're not going to get to your end users. They're not going to get to your devices and infect your network. So with that, I will thank you for your time today and hope that you enjoy the rest of the day.